All praises to the Most High. We thank and praise our uh, our Father Yahweh for all that He have done and is doing to gather us up and to make us whole again. That we get ready for the kingdom and get ready for this marvelous eternal life that we are about to go into. Okay, we pray that He shorten the time. We pray that He kill all of our enemies and weaken them so that we will be able to take the kingdom, share their technology, take control of their nukes, gather them up into the valley of Gethsemane, gather them up for getting them ready for Armageddon. Okay, all right. So we want to talk again. We want to talk a little bit about and show a video. We're going to show how God is gathering up the tares. He's tricking them. He's gathering up the tares, getting them ready to be burned in the fire, okay? Because we know Jesus gave us this parable in the 13th chapter of Matthew. A lot of people disagree with me, but this parable is warning us how the enemy would sow bad seeds. We're talking about the mulatto races, right? Because we know they're not just light-skinned. We have dark-skinned mulattoes too, right? We have mulattoes that were not sold into our race, particularly like Barack Obama, the African, and Esau has planted mulattoes, calling them brown people and saying that they were our people, and got us trusting and believing that they're going to help us, like the Kamala, right? Like the Condoleezza Rice, Obamas, the Obamas, right? Those people, those brown people. So some of the Native Americans, they call themselves $5 Indians, the Native Americans. Trump said, no, they're not the Native Americans, because what he knows the Native Americans, they look the originals, the ones that they describe in the Webster Dictionary as the first Americans, they look like Michael Jordan. They wouldn't give him that grant for that casino, right? So he spilled the beans. And we know that the Bible said that that the kingdom of God is like a man plant good seed in good ground. Then you go over here and you continue down in the chapter, and it explains the parable to you how the good ground was Israel, and the bad seed, and the good seed. The good seed was Israel, and the bad seed was the other nations planting their seed in our race and leaving them there, and just leaving. Ain't that what Esau did? He planted over 600,000 babies in our race and left them there. In this video I'm going to show you, it shows you why he left them there. And you know he's got a whole child support and child court and all of that. Child court, calling us abandoned fathers and stuff. And he left a burden of 600,000 babies on our race while we was in slavery, to take care of 600,000 of his children. And he called us no good daddies. He called us no good daddies. They do not have a ground to stand on when they come on telling people about their morals. Like China said, you do not have a ground to stand on to tell the other world rest of the world how they should live. You people are acting just like devils, just like beasts. Okay, so this video that this Afro Brazilian, she's explaining in a little 12-minute video, and I don't know if we'll use the whole thing, but I'm going to commentary through it and try to show biblical points in it. Okay, so we'll get right to it. I just want to say, in the verses in the Bible, 13th chapter of Matthew's parable of the sower and the tare, the wheat and the tare. The Yahushua said not to root up the tare, right? Why? Because he said when you root them up, if you root them up, you're gonna destroy the wheat and the tare. And letting us know that the only way you're gonna get rid of that again, the only way you're gonna get rid of that tare is you're gonna have to pull it up from the root. Ain't that way? Don't all of us who are gardeners know that's how you get rid of a weed? But he said, while men slept, while we were in slavery, sleeping, didn't know who we were, the enemy came and sowed bad seed among the wheat, right? Bad seed. We're talking about bad seed now. So I'm not talking about the people that Israelites have planted seed in the other nations too, right? I'm not talking about those seeds. I'm gonna let God deal. He's gonna deal with it all, but I'm not talking about them, because some of those people will hear the voice of God. Some of the Israelites who raised by the other nations have parents and mothers. You don't want to root them. You don't want to root those people up, because they're siblings. They have siblings. Some of the tare have siblings with the wheat. They're brothers and sisters. They have mothers, you know, and everything. They have relatives. So you can't just go plucking people up. You'll destroy the wheat. But he said, in the last days, he's going to send his angels to gather them up. And this woman is describing how the mulattoes who hold the ideology that if they pull away from their black ancestors and relatives and build their own race, have children by only light-skinned mulatto people, then they would be making their race better. But through revelation knowledge, God, I believe the Most High has tricked these people. We know we tricked them. He's tricked them already, because if they think pulling away from the nation is going to make the Esau kingdom is the way out, you know, pleasing Esau and fighting against their own relatives and fighting against the Most High people is the way out, then we know they've been tricked already. We know they're delusional, right? Because they won't win like that. Coming back to the laws and commandments of God for any nation, whether they be Israelites or just those that's cleaving to us, they have to do what we have to do. We have to cleave to God's laws, right? And live according to where the Bible wants Israelites to live. So we know they're deceived, but they believe that if they gather themselves up and pull away from us, that they are doing their race a great favor. But I believe that that's the Most High tricking them, gathering them up, those angels gathering them up, getting them ready for the fire. That's a warning to some of you mulattoes. God is gathering. If you think that way, if you think you're making your race better, and you're gonna come and you're gonna be better fit for Esau's kingdom, God is gathering you up, getting you ready for the fire. That's a warning to you. Okay, let's go to the video. Okay.
Hey guys, I'm Fahida, and today we're going to be talking about the African diaspora in Brazil. Did you know that Brazil has the biggest African diaspora community outside of Africa? The 2010 census in Brazil showed that for the first time, the majority of the Brazilian population identified as Afro-descendant. 50.7% of Brazilians, the equivalent of over 100 million people, self-identified as black or mixed race. The statistics I'm about to give you are truly staggering. The Transatlantic slave trade as we know it began when the Portuguese completed the first transatlantic slave voyage to Brazil in 1526. From 1500.
So if she's right about that and they brought these people from Africa, this is not like the 12 chart says. Let me get this straight. I believe in the 12 chart, right? Because that is from Genesis 49. So I believe in the 12 tribe chart, right?
1 to 1866.
But if she is right, I know she's not right. This can't be
4.9 million enslaved.
Wait a minute, I'm gonna run it back. But if she is right, then these people in Brazil, all these people are the Southern Kingdom. These are Jews down there. So she can't be right. The transatlantic, they didn't bring those people from Africa. I'm saying they brought those tribes. They're the Northern Kingdom. They brought them from America. Now, if I'm wrong, then the chart is wrong. And then if the chart is wrong, the Bible is wrong. And we know that can't be. So they did not fill Brazil up with Africans from Africa. They didn't bring them there from here. They brought them from the America. I have other documentations that show, and video documentaries that show that they were transferring slaves back and forth from America, right? All over the islands. Why? Because they were trying to clear America out so they could feel America take the land, so they could take the land, right? So they were kidnapping, killing, bringing the children from 20 on down, bringing them to these other islands and stuff, so that to make slaves and workers and to populate these islands. They were moving them off of North America because they wanted North America, right? And they wanted to put the northern tribe, those Indians down here in these work camps on these other islands and places. Now, if I'm wrong,
that's nearly 40% of all slaves traded in the transatlantic slave trade, and at least 4 times the number of slaves that were trafficked to the United States. Brazil was the last country in the Western Hemisphere to.
If I'm wrong, I'm trying to get this to pull up so we can get a better picture. If I'm wrong about how the slave trade happened, then, somebody needs to tell me how it really happened. If I'm wrong, then the Bible's wrong. The chart is wrong. But they did not bring Judah and spread them over in Brazil. It's 3 tribes down in Brazil, maybe 4. It's 4 Northern Kingdom tribes in Brazil. Not Brazil, on South America. And so let's go back and listen to this again.
I'm about to give you are truly staggering. The transatlantic slave trade as we know it began when the Portuguese completed the first transatlantic slave voyage to Brazil in 1526. From 1501 to 1866, an estimated 4.9 million enslaved Africans were trafficked to Brazil. That's nearly 40% of all slaves traded in the transatlantic slave trade, and at least 4 times the number of slaves that were trafficked to the United States.
Did you hear what she said? That's 4 times as more slaves that was brought to America, to North America. There is 4 times Brazil. If you look at the Brazil, if you look at that continent, it's bigger than North America. It's bigger than North America. They said they have 100 million Africans and black mulattoes down there in Brazil. It's only 40 million here. But their biggest population, the population down there is one of the greatest numbers of slaves. They cleaned out America.
Brazil was the last country in the Western Hemisphere to abolish slavery in 1888. Slave labor was the driving force behind several key industries in Brazil, including sugar production, gold and diamond mining, coffee production, and agriculture. As was the case across Latin America, enslaved Africans.
And if those are the original northern tribes right there, then all the northern kingdom is not light-skinned, not unturned cake, not golden brown like her. But even with her skin complexion and everything, I would go with this as the northern kingdom before I would those pale-faced people, that $5 Indians, blue-eyed, blonde-hair Mexicans, blue-eyed, blonde-hair Native Americans. Okay, those are not our people. Okay, and if the Northern Kingdom is still dark skinned like that, why aren't our groups, our camps, going and showing pictures and videos of these people also? Along with these people, maybe some Mexicans, maybe some of the lighter skinned Mexicans are, mulattoes, are the good seed. Okay, maybe they are, but the way you know them is this: your spirit will bear witness, and their spirit will tell them, okay, let me go start keeping these laws and commandments. These are my people here. We have a lot of mulatto Mexicans and Native American Indians. I don't hardly see any of them saying that they want to, they want to come back to their race and to their country. I don't see it, but I see a lot of Mexicans. Okay.
In Brazil escaped and formed maroon settlements called quilombos, the most famous of which was gold and diamond mining, coffee production, and agriculture.
You see the reason why they didn't want to bring them all the way from Africa? If the Northern Kingdom was in North America, like they said, they wouldn't have gotten all those people from Africa, the west coast of Africa down in Brazil. They would have hit America first anyway, if they brought them over here. And they would be Judites. They would be Jews. And there was a lot of trade going on in Brazil. They had a reason to take the people from here and take them there. Took them, what? If it took them 33 hours at all, they got them there and made sure, even though the so-called small hats, they ensured that would be a better buy for their money. If they were insuring the slave trade, insuring the slaves, then that would give them a better a reassurance that the slaves would reach their destination. Then why would they insure all those slaves coming from Africa here? If they said they brought over 200-300 million here and most of them got lost in the sea, that's wasted money, man. Why wouldn't they just, if they were trying to clean off America anyway so they could move their people in, which they did, that's what happened. If they were doing that anyway, why wouldn't they just take the Northern Kingdom from here and take them down there? You tell me. What you think?
The case across Latin America, enslaved Africans in Brazil escaped and formed maroon settlements called quilombos, the most famous of which was Quilombo dos Palmares, which existed for most of the 17th century. It was a relatively large quilombo with a population of several thousand escaped slaves and indigenous people who formed a complex and structured society. At its height, it had a population of 30,000 people and spanned over 11 villages, occupying a landmass the size of Portugal. The most famous Afro-Brazilian slave resistance leader was Zumbi, the last king of Palmares, who led the fierce counterattack against the Portuguese forces trying to seize the Quilombo. Although the settlement was captured in 1695 and Zumbi was decapitated, today he is a powerful symbol of resistance against slavery in Brazil and Portuguese colonial rule. To this day, the descendants of Afro-Brazilians living in Quilombo settlements fight for the right to their ancestral land. In 2018, for the first time, a Quilombo community was given land titles when the Cachoeira Poteira community of 500 people was formally granted 220,000 hectares of Amazonian rainforest. A key turning point was the Haitian Revolution, which ended in 1804, whereby the Afro-descendant population of Haiti rebelled against the white French elite and claimed their independence, both from French colonial rule and their European slave masters. This sent shockwaves across Latin America, which were felt as far as Brazil. Some Afro-Brazilians even wore portraits of Haitian revolutionary leader Jean-Jacques Dessalines in pendants around their necks. However, after the collapse of the sugar industry in Haiti, it was Brazil that catered to the increased demand for sugar. Enslaved Africans continued to be imported in large numbers to the region of Bahia. From the Haitian Revolution onwards, slave rebellions became more frequent and more brutal. The largest rebellion occurred in 1835 in Salvador and was known as the Malay.
1835, right? 1835, they were still down there fighting for their freedom. Okay? That's significant. Because what was we doing here? We had a whole government up here of black people. We had a whole government up here of black people. George Washington chopped down the cherry tree. That was the government of the Moorish. George Washington chopped down the cherry tree. Around that era is when they took over running politics in this country. But before then, the Moors and the civilized, who they call savage Indians, they ran the government over here. They held the colony in their places until they built those guns, the Gatling gun and those guns that took over the Barbary pirates. And when they stopped the Barbary pirates and took them out of power by the Most High, by the will of the Most High, that's when they took over the whole government on this land. We were not savages. How did savages take over this island down here in Brazil? They had clothes on. They over 30,000 of them took over and took Brazil over. Hades.
A uprising. It was orchestrated by African-born Muslim slaves who intended to free all of the slaves in Bahia. However, the rebellion was crushed and many participants were arrested, executed, flogged, or deported. Relations were tense between enslaved Africans who had recently been imported and the enslaved Afro-Brazilians who had been born into slavery on Brazilian soil. The Afro-Brazilians were comprised of blacks and mulattoes who were mixed with the European ancestry of their slave masters. They were treated better, were more likely to be emancipated, often because they were the slave master's children, and had greater opportunity for social mobility once they had been freed. In fact, it was not uncommon for wealthy free blacks and mulattoes in Brazil to have slaves of their own. It was arguably these internal divisions that held the enslaved population back from staying.
All right, we're going to go back to sharing. Going to get this video back. Let's see if this is it. No, that's not it. Let's get it back. This is it. Good grief. How in the world did I miss it again? Okay, we're back. Let's start it again.
More frequent and more brutal. The largest rebellion occurred in 1835 in Salvador and was known as the Malay Uprising. It was orchestrated by African-born Muslim slaves who intended to free all of the slaves in Bahia. However, the rebellion was crushed and many participants were arrested, executed, flogged, or deported. Relations were tense between enslaved Africans who had recently been imported and the enslaved Afro-Brazilians who had been born into slavery on Brazilian soil. The Afro-Brazilians were comprised of blacks and mulattoes who were mixed with the European ancestry of their slave masters. They were treated better, were more likely to be emancipated, often because they were the slave master's children, and had greater opportunity for social mobility once they had been freed. In fact...
Okay, we're going to go back just a little bit. I want you to see. Okay, see, this is what I'm talking about. Now, these people look just like, they look just like the people the mulattoes from a black seed. Okay, these are white seeds right here. These are bad seeds, but they look like, and it sounds like I'm rooting them up. I'm not trying to root them up. I'm just being truthful. It looks like they look just, you can't tell them apart. So if that is not what that parable is talking about in Matthew 13, then it still fits they still fit that description of the bad seed. And you heard what the woman just said. Esau, he let them stay among these people, because if there was a rebellion to happen, he could depend on these people to calm the rebellion down, because they were relatives. They considered themselves relatives. They were in the root. They were wrapped in the root. Their roots were wrapped together. Okay. But now they begin to gather. They begin to gather up.
Had greater opportunity for social mobility once they had been freed. In fact, it was not
Let's try that again.
better, were more likely to be emancipated, often because they were the slave master's children, and had greater opportunity for social mobility once they had been freed. In fact, it was not uncommon for wealthy free blacks and mulattoes.
And Esau is using. You hear Joe Biden say, "We're going, we're going to have to start working with the Mexicans more. You black people going to have to start working with the Mexicans." They're doing it now. They're using these people for greater mobility, to move among us, to control us better. They're using them as taskmasters. Now, I'm not talking about her or anybody that would agree, or anybody that would come back and be a good seed among God's people and stand up against the evildoers. I'm talking about those people who are using this to their advantage to benefit in Esau's kingdom.
In Brazil to have slaves of their own. It was arguably these internal divisions that held the enslaved population back from staging a successful revolt.
You hear that?
Although Brazil gained its independence from Portugal in 18...
He said these mulatto people had slaves of their own. And it was these people who held the indigenous northern kingdom back from rebelling. Now, we know that was the will of God, but it's not now. It's not God's will now for us to be under their government. Okay?
22. Slavery wasn't formally abolished until 1888, when Princess Isabel of Brazil passed the Lei Áurea.
Who was that? Is that an Edomite? That's an Edomite. She's a Brazilian, and she's the princess, and she's in authority. They got her in authority, but she's calling herself a Brazilian. Okay? All right? So once they got them back destroyed again, they, got them working together and united together, hand joined in hand, the wicked will not go unpunished. But once they got them joined again, then she said, okay, we'll take the chains off of them.
The Golden Act. This made Brazil the last country in the Western Hemisphere to abolish slavery. The sheer amount of slaves that had been trafficked to Brazil during the slavery era meant that the Brazilian population was now majority black and Afro-descendant. At a time when scientific racism was gaining popularity,
look, wait a minute, go back and look at these people, man. Go back and look at these people.
Population was now majority black and Afro-descendant. At a time when
look at these people. You got all of these Australians. Those are supposed to be Australian. Here's an Oriental man in there calling himself an Australian. Who is this right here? Okay, we got these Arabs. Look who's standing over up front. Esau is standing up over all of these mulattoes. He's standing up over all of these mulattoes. Right? Look who these Europeans, Polynesians. Those Polynesians, that's Japhet, Esau, Ishmael. Who is that down there? Ishmael. Who are these? Polynesians. Okay. Polynesians. Australians. Who are these? Okay, maybe y'all can make out those names a little better than me. But Esau is standing, he planted these people. He planted his seed, and these are the seed. This is the seed of Esau right here. This is the seed, because he wasn't letting us mate with his women. After that misogynist act was passed, no more marrying Esau's women. Because he was planting his seed, not that he cared about us having his women. He knew that was keeping us out of fellowship with God. But what he was doing was planting his seed for political reasons, so he could count on them, that bad seed, to take up and fight against us, whether it be with smooth words or with the sword, to keep us from rebellion. After Bacon's rebellion, no more. Okay? So look at these people. These people are all product of Esau's seed.
Scientific racism was gaining popularity.
Scientific
the Brazilian
racism.
government sought to whiten the racial profile
You hear what she
of the
said?
country.
Scientific racism. Brazilian government said we're going to whiten these people. Just go ahead and
The
look.
Brazilian government sought to whiten the racial profile of the country. It implemented a tactic called whitening, whereby from the late 1800s to the early 1900s, Brazil encouraged and even subsidized the mass influx of...
This was already happening in North America, right? It had already happened during the Maccabees, during the Greek captivity, and the Roman captivity. They had already, this is the part of the crafty council, right? Okay.
Whereby from the late 1800s
Psalms 83, Jeremiah 17:4.
To the early 1900s, Brazil encouraged and even subsidized the mass influx of white European immigrants to Brazil. The countries with the highest numbers settling in Brazil were Italians, Portuguese, and Spanish. Although
see that? We just showed you. Portuguese, Italians, and not only that, Moab was in there too. Moab, but now this is a new flood the land with the people right here, right? There's Moab right there, right here. That's Moab. Ham, Italians, Spanish, the Irish, they're the Irish, red hair. Okay. Scientific. This was scientific. This was scientific. This was systematic knowledge. Was experiment. The experiment had been done. Science is always with an experiment, based on experiment. So they already had experimented in America and in all them other places that I was telling you about. This was scientific, like she said.
this didn't eradicate blackness from Brazil. It reinforced the trope that whiteness should be aspired to, and that marrying someone whiter was an instrument of social mobility. In the 20th century, the black movement in Brazil gained momentum. A defining moment was in 1931 when the Frente Negra Brasileira was formed.
Okay, this is God rising us up again. The chains are off. The chains are off, right? He's gathering us up and he's gathering them up. He's gathering us back up and he's gathering them up. He's tricking them to thinking that they are being scientific, that their best thinking got them in the fire, gathered up for getting ready for the fire. But he's releasing us right here.
The first black political party in Brazil, organized by Arlindo Veiga dos Santos. The party put forward candidates for political office, ran literacy classes, health clinics, and legal services for black communities across Brazil. They also published a newspaper called A Voz de Raça, which circulated news about black communities both in Brazil and overseas. The party was short-lived, however, when in 1937, the Brazilian dictator Getúlio Vargas dissolved all political parties. From the 1950s onwards, there were a number of black social movements in Brazil that lobbied for black rights. One of them.
So you saying, okay, it didn't work. We didn't come out on it. No, what God is doing at the same time, how many times did Moses and Aaron go to Pharaoh and say, hey, let my people go? If not, you're going to suffer these curses. You're going to suffer these plagues. So that's what's happening. The black people, he's waking them up and got them thinking civilized again, thinking uniting and coming out again and being their own nation again. At the same time, he's got Pharaoh rising up to his highest power, because he said the higher I raise you up, the harder you're gonna fall.
Most famous was the Unified Black Movement, also known as the MNU, founded in 1978, which is arguably the most influential black organization in.
And a lot of people will say these are Israelites thinking they're going to save themselves out of slavery. No, it's not. God is doing this. They couldn't have came to the mind like this, to the frame of mind, to where they start trying to rise up above slavery, above helplessness. They couldn't rise above helplessness. And, you know, these people, it looks like they were like more of a remnant, you know, than we were. Right? Because, look, they never told them they couldn't read. They never told them they couldn't keep their culture. Because they were disconnected from it, but they kept it in their mind where they came from. Right? They kept it in their mind who they were. They knew who the slave master was. They knew he was not their friend. He was their enemy. They never left that mind.
Brazil in the second half of the 20th century. Among things, the organization spoke out against police brutality, the oppression of black women, and discrimination against the LGBTQ community. In 1995, the MNU.
Now, that's America interjecting that feminist and all of that. When Esau, and that shows you right there, when Esau couldn't stop them from uniting and realizing who the devil was, he couldn't stop them. He started interjecting that homosexuality all over the world, right? That was to hold us down, to weaken our masculinity, and to bring our men and women into a fight against each other.
You helped organize the March for Zumbi in the capital of Brasilia. The event protested racism in Brazil and also celebrated the anniversary of the death of Zumbi, the slave resistance leader who was the last king of the Quilombo dos Palmares.
He couldn't do it.
With a turnout of over 40,000 people, it was the largest national black demonstration in Brazil. In recent years, social media has played a pivotal role in black political activism in Brazil.
Recent years, but the Most High used these men and their zeal to deliver the people. He used them to bring the people out of that learned helplessness, that docileness that slavery had put us in. Just like the caves had an effect on the Europeans, that docileness that he put us in, he allowed us to go in, had a long-lasting effect on us. So he had to bring us out of that cognitive dissonance and that Stockholm syndrome. So he used these men, our heroes and saviors in this land and wherever we are in captivity at, wherever we were scattered. He used those men to help us come out of that docileness thinking, learned helplessness.
Particularly amongst Afro-Brazilian millennials, social media platforms such as YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook have allowed Afro-Brazilians to connect and mobilize online. Social media provides a forum to discuss the collective struggle, but crucially, it has also allowed the dissemination of photos and video footage showing police brutality against Afro-Brazilians. One such example is the murder of Claudia da Silva Ferreira, who passed away in 2014 after a police van dragged her down the road for over 1,000 feet. The grisly incident was captured on camera and circulated on social media, sparking national outrage. The Black Lives Matter movement in particular gained traction with Afro-Brazilian youths, who coined the hashtag Vidas Negras Importam. The fact that an unprecedented number of people
and he used these incidents to pour out his spirit the spirit of we got to get up and fight these people back, stand up against the evildoers. He's using this spirit. He's pouring it out on all flesh, on all the people. Not only the Israelites, a lot of the people in this world don't want to live in the world where these kings and monarch tyrants have the power and the right to destroy whoever they don't like. Not only black people, but not only the Israelites, but all of the people on the earth do not want to live with these tyrants.
Identified as black and mixed race in the 2010 Brazilian census shows that Brazilians are prouder and more willing to claim their African heritage than ever before. However, the census also brought to light the grave disparities between the distribution of wealth amongst white and Afro-descendant Brazilians. The
Right, that's doll census. They use that census going around and reclassifying people all over wherever we were scattered. Just like they stole our land here and reclassified up the Northern Kingdom, which were American natives, the Indians, they reclassified all of them to be Negroes. But it was a little different here in Brazil.
Economic gap between white and black Brazilians persists. The 2010 census found that in major cities, white Brazilians earn 2 to 3 times more than their black counterparts. The wealthiest strata of Brazilian society remains 82% white, and the poorest strata is
and not only that, these census and all this stats and all this information that is being brought out, it's God indicting these people. He's laying the record out to what they have actually done to us, because they'll deny it and say, we owe you nothing. We didn't do nothing to y'all. That was our ancestors, right? But we're being found in their hand because they're continuing this system that enslaved us and kept us on the bottom. They are continuing it. They're still running this system. They are still running it because we, like the Brazilians, they really don't know what being free is. They don't know that they're God's people. They don't know they have unalienable rights. You know, they don't know that. And so they did all of us the same way.
26% black. Afro-Brazilians have far less access to quality education, healthcare, or fair wages.
What's the scripture that said, woe unto the man connected houses, house to house, connected all the houses? Look at this stuff, man. They connected all the houses, man. Stacked us on top of each other, making cities and stuff. They said, well, this is what the Brazilians did. No, they didn't. They wouldn't have lived like that if they wasn't forced in the corner. They had to live like that. Esau's responsible for all of the dilemma on the earth, man. Isaiah 14 and 17, that made the world a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof and opened not the house of his prisoners.
Have far less access to quality education, healthcare, or fair wages, and they are underrepresented in the government. The most prominent African-derived religions in Brazil are Candomblé and Umbanda. Umbanda centers on the belief in spirits, both good and evil. Candomblé is derived from the belief systems of a number of African...
You see, those are two entirely different groups of people in religion, man. You see, these people, they're lightening up, but, you know, they're lightening up. But then you see this other group of people.
Both good and evil. Candomblé
right
is derived from the belief...
You see these other group of people. Look back here. They're getting even lighter, okay?
Systems of a number of African ethnic groups, particularly Yoruba, Fon, and Bantu.
Now look at these two people. They call them the Bantu, right? Right? And they say they brought them from Africa. Well, if they did, that's the Northern Kingdom that was in Africa and not in America, like the Bible says. Just like Pan-Africans calling us Africans. So we don't know where they got that Bantu name from. They might have been their name that they acquired while they were in North America before the slavers brought them there.
Similar to the Orishas of Santeria practiced in Cuba and other regions, The deities of candomblé are called the orishas. Over time, they have become syncretized with Roman Catholic saints. This dates back to when enslaved Africans were forbidden by their European masters from practicing their African religions.
See that? Practicing their African religions. They call it African. That's the slave master. That's these people. She don't know, but that's them hijacking our true identity. These are Israelites. And we have Israelite culture. That's them being disconnected from their culture. So the prophecy spilled over on them. They were disconnected from their culture, and they were banned by gunpoint not to practice their culture.
So in secret, under the guise of praying to Catholic saints. Because of the historical ties between candomblé and Catholicism, Catholicism is also widely practiced amongst Afro-Brazilians. One Afro-descendant saint venerated in Brazil is Escrava Anastasia, a slave woman of African descent who was depicted wearing a metal face mask. The story goes that her master's wife accused her of flirting with her husband, and as a punishment forced her to wear an iron mask over her face for the rest of her life, until she died from tetanus from the rusty metal. The biggest Afro-Brazilian festival is the Festival of Iemanjá, celebrated every February 2nd in...
Okay, we want you to go watch the video. Okay, go watch the video. Just type in Afro-Brazilians. But, you know, it's proof out here. All you have to do is look for it. It's proof. The Bible is history, and it's proven the Bible. It's standing with the Bible, right? So the Bible's not lying. We're not lying. We just got to get this thing straight, because if we don't, we give our oppressors room to continue to oppress us. We have to go and stand up, make a stand against this government, man. And you said, well, you're talking against the government. That's tradition. That's sadistic. That's sedition. No, it's not. No, it's not, because they don't have jurisdiction over us. We already have laws, and they are not keeping the laws that were set in place by our ancestors. They are tyrants. They are not government. They are tyrants ruling over us. And if we don't stand up against them and tell them, you know, even the Israelites, when God stopped them from fighting the enemies, he still told them they had to go march around Jericho and scream. And he did the fighting. So we at least got to stand up to these people and indict them and give God an opportunity to fight for us, to bring them down, right? Give him an opportunity. We don't ever stand and keep bowing our necks down to them and just going along with their government, giving our unalienable rights to them and asking them for crumbs. Can we vote in your system? Will y'all give us some crumbs? We don't want your reparations. If we stand up against y'all and give you all your reparations, give you everything back, and resist your government, and claim our name and our heritage back and keep these laws, then God is going to tear y'all down anyway and make you our slaves. We won't have to lift a finger. We won't have to worry about fighting y'all at all. All we have to do is come back to the Most High. So all praise to the Most High. I hope this has been helpful to someone. And let's get out here and teach this thing right, man. Let's teach it right. All praise.